So this is Lloyd. He's a multi-axis industrial robot that I've been repairing here at my makerspace. And this is hopefully the first in a series of videos going over some of the hardware and software development that needed to take place for him to be operational here. So, as for proper introductions, Lloyd is actually an American robot MR6200. So back in his prime, he was doing automotive welding, some assembly operations, and some water jet cutting stuff. But ever since we got him about 5 years ago, he's been nothing but a real big paperweight. We didn't have any of the hardware to power him, we didn't have any of the software to run him. So ever since I got some time, about 3.5 months ago at this point, it's been my mini life's mission to get Lloyd up and running so that we can use him for some cool stuff here. So after popping off the electronic brakes, the first problem became control. And luckily, Lloyd is controlled by 6 pretty standard stepper motors. 3 of them are dedicated to the base, the main axes, and then 3 are specifically dedicated to the hand and the wrist. So after I popped off the initial connectors and sourced the appropriate stepper drivers, I was able to connect everything to an Arduino and get some initial testing done. And that's around where I hit my first major roadblock. So you'll notice here, if I just move the shoulder joint, the elbow joint's angle with respect to its initial mounting position has changed. And that's because there's some mechanical reductions in here that are changing the way that a particular motor speed will affect a particular output joint speed. And if I want to change a joint speed, my Arduino, every time I do that, needs to recalculate which motor speeds are appropriate. So if I say, move your shoulder at 3 degrees per second, but keep your elbow super still, I need to move the shoulder motor 3 degrees per second, but I also need to move the elbow motor in reverse at the same speed such that the angle between them doesn't change. And basically my Arduino just can't do that fast enough. But what I've settled on, at least for the time being, is to use a Teensy 4.1 to do all the necessary calculation and stepping of the stepper motors. And then I just have a robot arm class that I wrote up in C, which will sort of abstract all of that recalculating joint speed logic into something that's a little more usable. So being able to control joint position and speeds is pretty cool, but if I actually want this thing to be useful, I need to be able to say, go to some position in 3D space with a tool and take some action. And in the process of doing that, I also need to be able to say, make sure that the path that you take isn't one that's going to cause you to hate yourself for a myriad of reasons. Ooh. And in order to do that, I'll be using this software called ROS. And I'll be glossing over a lot here because there's some technical depth that goes into how I actually got it working on this robot. But essentially what it allows me to do is take other people's code like path planners or kinematic solvers and plug them into my robot without necessarily having to understand how all of those lower level things are implemented. And I just start off by going in and 3D modeling my arm in Fusion 360 so that I can provide it to those path planners, defining all the joints and how they move in relation to one another. And once that's done, I can import it into something like Move It, where I can plan joint trajectories. And that's as simple as saying, execute the joint trajectory on the robot, and I get something like this. And that's essentially where I'm at with this project. There's a lot that's been done, but there's still a lot more to do. I'd like to finish fixing some issues with the encoders, implementing safe shutdown on the microcontroller so it can save states, and then eventually, I'd even like to get around to fixing this original motion pendant that we found. It's got a real cool click to it, real ASMR-y. But if you're interested in this project, you can subscribe and I'll post new videos as I get more major updates. And if you have any advice, this is a little outside of my usual working area, so any advice is appreciated down in the comments. Thanks for watching.